On today's episode of Beyond Resilience, our hosts, Dr. Jamie Renbarger and Katherine Haffey, are discussing reframing negative thoughts.
Good morning.
Hello there. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
You know, I am doing all right today. Doing all right. Just happy to be sitting in a room, virtual room with you.
Yeah,
So.
I'm happy to be here too. I'm so excited about today's topic. I know it means a lot to you and a lot to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, today we're going to talk about really taking those negative thoughts and reframing them into something that's going to serve you better.
Absolutely. Yeah. As I take a deep breath, right? So as we get ready to jump in, Katherine, is there anything on your heart today that you want to share?
You know, I think that we all go through, the negative thoughts, which about everything in our life, right? I think that's kind of our natural human tendency is to think, the what ifs or oh no, or those types of things. At least play devil's advocate back and forth a lot with almost every choice that we have, every decision that we make. It's so common.
Absolutely.
But I think the real key here, the real takeaway is going to be how can we take those thoughts of whatever that thought happens to be, which elicits that emotion in us of fear, sadness, anxiety, and how can we take that thought while we don't go down a rabbit hole and make it into something that's going to be better for our health and our wellness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the way you said all of that. And what's coming up for me is, the reality is the negative thoughts, as you say, and the emotions associated with those, whether that's fear or anxiety, sometimes we say, or anger or sadness. Those are there for a reason, and so being able to sit in those and to process those feelings and to fully acknowledge them is such an important part of the journey, right? Of the process.
It is.
So, the reality is we feel fear because our brains are telling us, our bodies are telling us we need to stay safe, right? We, to try to avoid death, to stay alive. I mean, ultimately, that's where a lot of that comes from, and it's so important to not gloss over that or try to bury that or push that down, but to really acknowledge it and feel it, and then ultimately to be able to move toward the positive reframe of that to live life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. I think some things that work for me are trying to identify that thought, and I might even write it down. And I might even write down, okay, from this thought, what emotion is being elicited? And is this justified or not? And then, is it serving me? And then I may have to sit in that and really kind of feel that pain, that uncomfortableness, that angst. And I know you know what I'm talking about with this
Absolutely,
one, right?
Yes.
And I think just, to kind of, not that we want to play therapist with ourselves, but sometimes it's helpful. I know for me it helps just writing those thoughts down when I'm going crazy and I am spiraling, and then to step back and think, why? Like what? Like, right. Is this harmful? or is it helpful? Which one is it? And then figuring out, okay, and I know that's been helpful for me when I can actually sit and write something down, and then write another way of thinking that way that's going to be a little more wise and more serving to my health.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Ultimately, over the course of life, and in this case, specific to the cancer journey, right, there are lots of things that are happening and that happen to an individual, to us, that we don't want, that scare us, that make us sad, that make us angry. And right, to your point, right, acknowledging and identifying, all right, okay, I've done that. I get that. Yeah, I'm really pissed off, and I'm going to feel pissed off, and I'm going to express that. And now, if I sit in that, how does that serve me? And in fact, is holding on to those negative feelings, negative emotions, negative thoughts, is that going to impair my healing process or my ability to fight this disease, to walk this path in the best possible way? Is that going to are those negative thoughts and feelings going to get in the way of my being able to do this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll share with you something that I'm dealing with right now. I took a battery of tests last week, and actually it's been a couple weeks ago. Now that I think about it, a complete battery of tests, which I'm happy to do because it's being proactive on my health care journey. However, I go over the results with my doctor tomorrow, and I'll be honest, I'm feeling a little bit scared and wondering, is everything going to be okay? What if they found something? What next? And this is tomorrow. This has nothing to do with today. So as far as today, where is my life today? I'm not getting my test results back today. I'm going to be trying to stay in that present moment today, thinking only positively about tomorrow. And that is what has served me. To think about all the things that could go wrong or that they could possibly find. Is that going to help me be any healthier or happier? Or I'm probably pretty miserable to be around in the next 24 hours.
Yes.
Yeah. You're okay.
Yeah.
But I really don't want to live with myself in that ugliness. Yeah. And I really want to be able to stay positive, because I also feel like when you visualize yourself healthy, then you will be healthy.
Right.
When you visualize yourself sick, unfortunately, the reverse has been shown to be true. So, we need to really take control of these emotions, thoughts when we're facing them. Right? To your point,
absolutely,
it's so true. You've got to be able to sit and feel those feelings. Yeah. And then act accordingly.
Absolutely. So I think a couple different things are coming up for me. So one linked specifically, and we've talked a little bit before about all the tests you did. So I know that they're not specifically related to your cancer. But what's coming up for me as we have this conversation is when you go in and when others go in for scans or for lab work, right? Intermittently, for disease surveillance, right?
Right.
You think everything's going well, but we just got to make sure we don't see any evidence of disease. What is that experience like for you? I can imagine.
Yeah. I was thinking about that because close family is dealing with this, sure. and friends and women that I've spoken to. And it's an ongoing process. So it's, how do you deal with this constant fear of the unknown until it becomes known, and I'm safe, right. And I have to ask, is that the way we want to live our lives for the rest of our life? Because we're going to be under, when you have metastatic disease, you're going to be under surveillance, and it's a good thing you're going to be under surveillance, but exactly. But you've got to be able to kind of like manage that, manage manage how you're going to react in the in between that. And it's not easy. It's difficult. It's very difficult.
It is difficult, and it's scary.
Yeah.
Some might even say terrifying, right?
Right.
And, to kind of stick with our topic for today is sitting in that fear serving people in any way, or is reframing that a possibility?
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
So, one thing that I always try to convey in conversations about disease surveillance, right, is, what's happening in your body in terms of your disease is happening regardless of whether we do these scans or this blood work or not. And our goal is to pick that up as early as we can, so that we can do whatever is possible to get that disease back under control, right? And so with knowledge actually comes power, even though the knowledge associated with that can sometimes be scary. So
yes.
A way to kind of think about reframing and empowering or taking on some power and some strength that maybe starts as fear. So,
yeah. And I was speaking to a woman who had stage 4 metastatic disease about this exact same thing. And the language that she was using was, I must do this. I can't let this whatever. And so I was noticing that strong control language of I must, I can't. And it's usually covering up like some type of hidden emotion where we need to deal with that. But I love language that's more like I can do this or I will do this. And this is something that I can do this. I will do this, not I must. It's a totally different spin on how you're going to perceive this situation. And so in our minds, if we take something that we find that we're trying to control, and we know we have no control over it, then, to kind of reframe that thought of can and will as your coach, your advocate, I find is a little more softer and kinder to self. I don't. Do you run into this, Jamie, when you're talking to people about trying to control everything that they really can't?
Absolutely, and that need for control as a way to stay safe, right?
Yeah,
right, and again, a lot of these feelings come to things that we can't control, and that maybe are associated with us being afraid for our lives, right?
Yeah.
And that's such an important thing to acknowledge and to allow yourself, right, to step into. I'm able to go and get these scans, right?
Right.
So just as one example. So.
Yeah. No, I love that. And also, like, if you think about, just on your point, I am able, that's showing an element of gratitude. And so when we have more gratitude in our life, we appreciate each and every moment that we get. And so our scans can be reframed as I get to do this. Like, this is one step closer to saving my life, or prolonging my life at least.
Right.
So I'm able to have that precious time with my children, with my families, take that trip that I always wanted to take, or whatever it is, that meal that I want to enjoy with my family. I'm able to do this, and what a privilege it is to be able to do this just from rethinking how your brain is processing that event.
Yeah. So if it's okay, I want to share a little something that's really on my heart. Speaking
Please.
Of what's on our hearts, that's really on my heart today, and it fits in, I think, really well with this idea positive reframing. And that is, so today is a really big day in our house. Today is my late husband Andy's birthday. And while Andy did not have cancer, he did die suddenly. He had a sudden cardiac death in 2015, so almost 9 years ago. And when my kids, so I'm a single parent, so when my kids were 7 and 9 years old, and it totally came out of the blue. And, and it really, I think as an oncologist, it has really allowed me to understand grief and sadness in a way that I couldn't before. I had never experienced such a loss.
Yeah.
And so Andy passed away in February of 2015, and his birthday is in January. And so we had an incredibly difficult year of a lot of where we were sitting in a lot of I'll just speak for myself. I sat in a lot of hard stuff and sadness and a lot of firsts, right? First experiences of things without this human who was so just the love of my life. Mm. And so it came around to the first anniversary of his birthday after losing him and the first anniversary of his death and things like that. And I thought a lot about and had conversations with my kids a lot about what do we want to do with this? It's really, really sad that he's not here to celebrate and that we can't celebrate with him in person. And man, what an amazing, awesome guy who I'm so grateful for. And I will always love and just have such gratitude that he was in my life and that we have these amazing children, right? And so, and Andy loved birthday parties, and maybe not the party itself, but, he was kind of an introverted guy who didn't like to bring a lot of attention to himself, but loved cake and ice cream, to be honest, right?
That's my kind of guy.
Yes. And so the kids and I decided that we would have a birthday party every year.
I love it.
And that we would celebrate him. And that we would celebrate all the wonderful things about him and about having him in our lives.
Oh, love it.
And that for me as a mom of young children, right, who lost their dad when they were pretty young, I was like, man, was such a great person and such a great dad. Oof. Like, I want them to remember him, and I want them to remember all the wonderful, whatever wonderful things they can about him as they grow up and as they age. And so for us, I think I bring it up because it's been such a special way to really take a tragedy in our lives.
Yeah.
And such deep loss and sadness, and to look at the positive side of that and to really celebrate Andy. So that's
wonderful. Thank you for sharing. That is such an amazing story. Celebrate his legacy, and your kids will probably go on for the rest of their lives to be able to do that. And that is such a neat gift that you've taken that initiative, and so this is what we need to do. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So, it gives me goosebumps. That's amazing.
Yeah. No, and the reality is that our lives are full of joyful moments, and they're also full of a lot of loss, right?
Yeah.
There is loss many, many times over the course of one's life journey.
Right.
And so finding what works for you, right? Finding what works for you to really allow yourself time and space to sit with how you really, how you're feeling, and acknowledging that and understanding that and working through that. And then what works in terms of allowing yourself to look at the positive side of that and to reframe it, to move forward with life.
But I mean, you said that so beautifully in such a nutshell. I love that. I think you could, a lot of people, when they grieve, they go to the gravesite with flowers or whatever, and it's a very sad time, and you're turning this into such a joyous, you've got tears of sadness, but tears of happiness as well. And and this is a choice that you have done. And I think we have to remember that for everybody out there. This is a choice that you can take and celebrate the time you had with him versus more in the time you didn't have with him. Of course, you're going to be sad with that. Who wouldn't? But the other part we kind of miss. We miss that part of, wait a second, I had however many years of amazing years of my life. I need to focus on that.
Yes.
Celebrate that.
Yep. So, Catherine, I so appreciate this conversation and really and the point that you're making with this. And one thing that is coming up for me that I just want to be super intentional about pointing out is I think has to do with my ability to put my emotions and feelings away and to really bracket. Yeah. I am and have always been really great at bracketing my feelings and my experiences. And that's sort of part of functioning in life, right? Whether I'm taking care of patients or my kids or doing other work or addressing things, right? But sometimes you just gotta put things away. I need to put my feelings away and do what I need to do. And there was definitely a time in my life that I was incredibly good at that and not good at all at actually being intentional about taking the time to sit with how I feel.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important to bring this up because I really looked at it and said, I got this figured out, right? I have it all together. Right. Life is great, whatever. And the reality is those feelings and all that stuff built up and up and up in me, and to the point that I couldn't avoid sitting with them and dealing with them. And so I think I learned kind of the hard way that positive reframing can be so powerful. And a key element of that is actually taking time for yourself and taking time to allow yourself to feel the feels, to feel the bad stuff, that is so a part of life, and as a part of that, to evolve to the positive reframing, and that is a very personal process. What works for me is different than maybe what works for Catherine and works for all of you. And would be super interested. I know, Catherine, I think you would be too. Please share, Share your ideas with us. What does work for you? We want to know. And you never know what you share may be super helpful to someone else.
Absolutely. I would encourage the same thing. I would say this conversation keeps going. Once we get more comments and we figure out, how other people actually deal with this. And I appreciate Jamie sharing such a personal story, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I thank you for that. And also the fact that I think there are a lot of people that want to be strong in putting those things in brackets. And so, ways that we, first of all, need to acknowledge that. So you acknowledge that, number one. And then number two, the other idea is, okay, I can't stay here forever. I need to unpack this. I need to reorganize this. I need to face this. I need to sit in this mucky yuck, feel what I'm feeling. And that might look like solitude. That might look like with a mom or girlfriend, a friend, that you sit with and you just let them listen. That might look like journaling. But like Jamie said, it's going to be different for everybody. But I would say, I would encourage you all to comment, and we can continue this conversation when we get more comments, and we can just keep it going, because I do think it's a super important topic.
So important. I love that. Yes, we want to hear from you. So please comment, share, let us know, and we'll talk more about this in the future.
Yes. Thank you. Right. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Take care, Catherine.
All right, you too.
This podcast is here to support you. If you liked it, please rate, review, follow, and share, since that's the best way to grow a community together. Please leave us comments and feedback. We're here to help.